Hey, this episode of Witchpolice Radio features an interview with three members of the band Softswitch. Softswitch is a local post-punk group who have a new tape coming out on November 30th. They're releasing the tape at a show with Holy Void, Hot Garbage from Toronto, and Winnipeg's Hot Sewer. The tape was actually mixed by legendary Steve Albini in Chicago, and we talk about their experience working with him, their decisions to release a tape over other media. We talk about how to define their sound, what post-punk means, and about being in their 30s in a music scene that tends to skew young. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our friends at the Park Theatre. Please visit myparktheatre.com to check out all of the great shows they have coming up. Thanks to everyone who's supported the show so far. Thanks to supporters like you, we can keep churning out interviews twice a week. If you like the show, please head down to patreon.com/witchpolice, and for as little as $1 a month, which is less than 12 cents an episode, you can help keep the lights on. A big shout out to patrons like Trevor Lux, frontman of past Witchpolice guests Playing as Ghosts, who is our latest patron. Your support is invaluable.
You're listening to Garbage Hill, Winnipeg's first podcast network.
Alright, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I am once again in a car, which is almost taken over for the food court as like the new place to do podcasts, but I sort of like it, and I have a band here that has not been on the show before. So I think maybe, or 3/4 of a band, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So just to start things off, maybe we go around the car here and identify, who everyone is and what instrument they play, so listeners can put a name to the voice.
Sure. I'm Ryan, and I play the bass guitar, and I do words.
Okay.
I'm Marisa, and I play the synthesizer.
I'm Rob, I play electric guitar.
Cool. And who are we missing?
Susie, who is the drummer.
Okay, cool. And so, just to start things right off, how long has this been a group? Because I think you had contacted me last year about a different band.
Yeah.
Potentially getting on the show, and that didn't happen. And
No.
now, so is this a fairly new project?
Well, it is and it isn't. So, like, Susie and Rob and me started jamming years ago.
Okay.
And then we were, like, super casual about it, and we weren't really trying to, get it started, I guess, really. And then, and Rob's in the Vital, and they were very active and are still, and the band I was in, Permanent Mistake, was quite active, so it was sort of a back burner thing for us. And then, I guess, so Permanent Mistake sort of ground to a halt last summer, and then I guess earlier this year, Rob had an opportunity for us to maybe do some recording, so we figured, okay, well, maybe we should get our act together and finish some songs and go get a name.
Right, yeah, that's important, yeah.
All that band stuff.
And so how long has it been, like, time-wise? Less than a year, or? Like, since you've actually been actively sort of doing it,
Since about spring of this year.
Okay.
Yeah, early spring is when I sort of joined in, because they've been practicing in our basement for the longest time, and they needed a synth player, so there I was, just sitting upstairs not doing anything, and I figured I would hop in.
Happen to have a synth, I guess, yeah. That's convenient, I guess. Yeah. And then, so the album you have coming out, what are the details about that? Or is it already out?
No, it's coming out.
Okay. I'm glad I got that right.
Yeah, no, for sure. So it's coming out on Friday the 30th.
Yeah.
It's going to be out on tape.
Okay, that's awesome.
And it's on Bandcamp. You can listen to one of the songs right now. I don't know. What do you have anything to say about it, Rob?
I mean, you can stream it all now. You just can't.
Yeah, that's right. You can't own it.
On the SoundClouds.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's the first 4 songs that we managed to finish.
Okay.
We wrote them in a blind panic. I tore up all of the lyrics and wrote them all the night before I had to do them.
Okay.
So I stayed up until about 4 and started doing vocals at 10. And then we recorded it to tape, and then we took that to Chicago. And we spent an afternoon with a guy named Steve Albini, and he was quite nice. And Yeah.
Just some guy that maybe no one has heard of before. Yeah. That's incredible. How did you hook that up? Is it? I've heard that he just basically will work for whoever hires him, right? Is that sort of?
Yeah.
More or less. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think this might have been the first album that he's mixed that he hadn't recorded himself.
Right. Yeah.
I was fortunate that I'm designing a studio up here, and the designer is friends with him.
Okay.
And on like an aside, it's like Little Bub's owner.
If you're into famous internet cats.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah.
So like that's his cat.
Okay,
like,
cool.
Finance his studio pretty much. So he's friends with Steve, and then through that I reached out to Steve, and he's like super approachable actually, and very open with any knowledge and help. So,
which is kind of funny because he definitely has he comes off as an asshole sometimes. Like I never met him obviously, but like just so his public persona is often based on the stuff he writes and everything. You know, he's got definitely kind of a tone to it, right?
Yeah,
like,
I mean he's certainly got opinions, and he's quite forceful with them, but. You know, they're also correct opinions.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. He obviously knows his stuff, right? Like, yeah.
He's an extremely intelligent, nice guy. So it was funny that opportunity came about, and I was going to be down there anyways because Steve just offered in his own time to show me his studio,
cool.
What worked, what didn't for design notes. So I reached out and said, well, you know, I've got this band. Would you be open to mixing it? I'll make sure it's recorded properly. Expecting him to say no, and he's like, "Oh, I've never done this before, but sure, why not?"
Cool.
I was like, "Oh, fuck, it's serious now." So
yeah.
I didn't tell him that we hadn't actually booked the studio, or the album was actually not recorded.
Yeah.
But it's kind of lit a fire under us. But
for no doubt. Yeah. That gives you a lot to live up to if you know that guy's gonna have his hands on it, right? Like that's
Oh, totally. Yeah, and he was a total master. Like he did it in like half a day, and then phoned his studio manager halfway through, and he's like, "Yes, bill Softswitch for a half day." It would be like he wouldn't. Yeah. It'd be unethical to bill us for a full day, even though we booked him for a full day. So it's like one of those guys that's just stand up dude.
The nice thing about having a process is it makes it easy to find out where mistakes were made. Do you really think he thought that this would make things right again? Maybe not. But this is how it works. Now I'm not saying every mistake is a problem. But you can't deny that these are some problematic ones. Do you really think he thought that this would make things right again? Maybe not. But this is how it works. How did you think all of this would end?
I mean, now that this is coming out and his name is attached to it, is there more kind of nerves on your part to like live up to the fact that Steve Albini was involved, or are you expecting people to be cool with it regardless?
Well, I mean, we have to be good. Like,
no, of course, yeah.
I mean, like, that is something actually that, you know, when we were gearing up for the first show and for this one that we're coming up on, we're rehearsing pretty heavily, and we want to live up to the recording. It would be so embarrassing to just not be able to execute on the stuff that's on the tape.
Sure.
But I mean, it's also slightly lower risk too, because we recorded it live. We recorded it to tape. There's no editing. There's no Pro Tools. So, we kind of were halfway there. I had to learn how to do vocals and bass at the same time.
Okay.
But yeah, other than that, it's pretty
one-to-one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, I mean, I know there's a few other local bands who've had Albini over the years, like Stag Bummer did in the 90s, and then Ken Mode more recently. And there's a few more as well. But
Conduct.
Right, that album's great too. Yeah. It's always. I remember when Ken Mode was about to do it, I was interviewing Jesse on the podcast, and he had it almost confirmed, and he had to tell me off air that Albini was going to do it, and it was just kind of in hushed tones. It's like the guy definitely has a reputation. It's so cool that you managed to get him there.
He's super democratic too. Like, you look at his catalog, he'll be able to work with anyone.
Oh yeah, he's got like Bush on there and stuff, and yeah, it's good. That's awesome. Yeah. So I guess the next question then would be, how do you define what you do? I mean, I've listened to the songs you sent, and I have an idea of what I think it sounds like, but there's always the horrible question when someone says, "Oh, you're in a band. What kind of music do you play?" How do you guys define the sound? I mean, do you just go post-punk as like a all-encompassing term, or?
I like to think we're a post-punk band, but some people might have other opinions. I don't know. Rob, what do you think of us?
Like a post-pork.
Post-pork?
Personally, I like to categorize it as 30-somethings desperately hanging on to their youth.
Yeah,
that's just
like
me.
Yeah.
Well, that's what this podcast
There's
is.
an element to that, yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just weird. I don't know. People just making weird rock music.
Yeah. No, fair enough. It's just everyone likes to kind of compartmentalize whatever music they have, right? So someone's going to get the tape and be like, oh, this is a whatever band, and you kind of have to tell them something, right?
And I think genres make sense as far as helping you find stuff that you want, right? Like if you know you like post-punk, I think you might not hate what we've done.
Well, post-punk on its own is just such a vague thing too, right? Because there's so many things that came out, like literally post-punk, that could fall into that category. So what, I guess, are there common influences among the four of you that kind of you all sort of point to as like, okay, I can see how this kind of seeped into the sound? Or
I think so. I don't know. I'm more like with my synth noises, I like a lot of 80s new wave stuff, so I bring a lot of that in there, and and also just I'm the like obnoxious glam rock one, trying to always like incorporate Roxy music kind of sounds and things into it, and I have more poppy sensibilities than everyone else in the band, but
Rob, what do you think?
And I appreciate that, Marissa, because you get if you're a band, you have four people that are very similarly aligned in their aesthetic, then it's almost too much of the same. Yeah. And it's kind of too much groupthink. So I'm kind of like Marissa as well. I like kind of 80s pop melodies, but also I like it mixed with pretty much unlistable noise.
Like
weird electronic
crunchy
stuff.
bits and stuff.
So I think it's a good mix. And then Susie, I can't really speak for her too much.
Susie and I are both really into like Wire and Brian Eno, and I think her taste is a little bit more towards, I don't know if it's more sterile sounds or like, I don't know. It's hard to speak for Susie. We should let her speak for herself.
Well, what do you think is, I guess, then the appeal of the 80s stuff? I mean, because I'm in the same boat. I listen to tons of 80s hardcore, and I was a baby in the. I'm 36 now, so wasn't really around for it. But it definitely appeals to me more than a lot of newer stuff does. And a lot of these artists that you're mentioning and genres you're mentioning, same kind of deal, right? Like, what do you think it is about that era that appeals to you and makes you kind of want to use some of those sounds toward your own music?
I think what's kind of interesting about that era is that a lot of the sort of tools and pieces of kit that you use nowadays were just being developed. So there weren't a lot of rules about how to use them correctly, and so people used them incorrectly and made interesting sounding things with them. And now,
like almost by accident, right?
Exactly. And now, like there are sort of accepted ways to do things, and that creates a certain sound. And if that certain sound is what you're chasing, that's great. But it results in a lot less variety, I think, in even just in mainstream stuff. Yeah. A lot of it sort of sounds a lot more like the rest of it than I think it used to. So I think just that raw edge where you can sort of be a little bit less bound to doing things properly is part of it.
Which is sort of the punk rock aesthetic anyway, right? Regardless whether you sound like a punk band or not, it's the same, totally. That kind of vibe. Are there local bands that you kind of feel a connection with that you think, whether you sound like them or not, that is sort of a similar aesthetic to what you're doing?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think we actually have a little bit in common with Rob's band, The Vital.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, at least some of your earlier stuff.
The deep cuts.
Yeah, the deep cuts. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of like Pleasure Dens, but they're a lot thrashier and noisier than we are. But it's sort of the same kind of feel, I guess. Who else is local that we could?
I don't know. It's hard. I don't want to make comparisons.
Yeah.
In case, like, they don't want to be.
That's kind of the other thing too, right?
Those guys suck. Yeah. I mean, Conduct. I've always thought they've been.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Incredible kind of musicians and composers.
As far as inspirational, they've definitely been.
Yeah, it's another really good band too. Yeah, for sure. Well, and there's a lot of bands that are kind of doing whatever you consider post-punk, a post-punk sort of thing too. Even outside of the heavier stuff too, there's a lot of bands that are incorporating synths and things like that. Whereas maybe 10 years ago, that would have been a big no, or it just kind of ghettoized into a certain subgenre. So, what do you think the synth adds as an instrument to what the sound? I mean, I guess I'll ask you because you're the player.
Yeah.
But how do you think it kind of adds to the sound? Because I mean, I could see a band like this very easily just having maybe a second guitarist or something. You know what I mean? And then, but you're doing something very different with the synth.
Yeah. I don't know. The sound I'm going for, like, I'm really kind of aiming for that electronic, digital kind of noise.
Yeah.
Like, as opposed to analog, and just because I don't know. I feel like it provides a nice contrast and often like kind of brings out the melody as opposed to like the crunchy guitars and like the heavy drums and all that, and it's more of just like I don't know, it's more in the background, but it
sort of fleshes things out.
It fleshes things out and just it rounds things out and just adds a different kind of bit to it. It just makes it a little more interesting. So,
well, and I guess I don't know if this is accurate, but I feel like it could almost act like a lead instrument in terms of the melody, whereas everything else could be kind of generating like a noise or some kind of just a vibe, and then that comes over it. Yeah,
for sure.
Is that? Did you guys always want a keyboard player or a synthesizer player? Or?
I think we were always open to it, and we worked with a couple of different people and. And it sort of became something that Rob brought in a synth one time, Krumar.
Yeah.
That thing is super cool. And we sort of just started playing with it and found a spot for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, where would we find a synth player?
Yeah.
Maybe
Upstairs.
That's extremely convenient. Yeah.
Marissa's like the real musician of the band. He's the one that actually has chops.
Yeah,
but that it sounds like you're probably joking about that, but that almost works well, though. I find when you have bands, especially doing something a little more experimental and stuff, where at least one person is kind of anchored in actually knowing what they're doing. I mean, I've been in bands like that where I was definitely not the guy who knew what was going on, but I was making noise, and thankfully the other people kind of had the skill to make it a song sort of thing.
Totally.
So it's always nice.
Yeah, like I'm classically trained in piano,
right. So
so like the synthesizer aspect of it, like a lot of all the little fiddly bits and knobs and stuff, I'm still kind of teaching myself that, but it's coming along and I'm getting a hang of it. But
so that could potentially take this
different from what I'm used to playing, but it's definitely going in a good direction.
And I guess once you figure out the knobs and stuff, this could completely change the sound too in the future, right? Going forward,
yeah,
that's cool.
Submission has been received. Application status incomplete. We have a place for you.
was the reason for going with the tape? I mean, that kind of also fits in with the whole 80s post-punk sort of vibe. And I like tapes. I never stopped listening to them. I'm glad that bands are doing them again because I still have a tape deck. But, like, was a tape a specific choice because that's just your format of...
It's because... It's a marketing choice. I'll admit it. People don't like paying for music unless they're getting something physical. That's how I feel about it anyways. Yeah. I want an artifact. I want some kind of trophy to put on my shelf.
Yep.
So tapes are the cheapest thing you can put out. They scale really nicely. You can do a run of 10 or a run of 50, and it's about the same per unit. That's not true with CDs. So, if people are going to buy a dead format, it may as well be one that looks cool on a shelf. And,
you got a big spine there with your band name on it.
Exactly. It's so much more satisfying than a CD, I guess, just in terms of, the physical aspect of it. And,
And I still think tapes, like, if they're like bounced to them properly at the right speed, and it's a good quality tape, I still think it sounds better than CD.
Oh, for sure,
It's like a natural compression that even a 1/4-inch tape adds to it. And you don't just fucking trash them all the time like every CD.
It gets scratched
and
shit.
in a glove box and shattered in a week forever.
Yeah, tapes are a lot sturdier, for sure. And they don't get the same type of care as records do in terms of not wanting to touch them because people bash around, but they're durable.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess tapes also, like, you're playing the right genre of music for tapes to be a thing. I think a lot of people who would be into your stuff are probably already into tapes in the first place. So.
I have a tape collection, so... And I like our music. So.
Well, I would hope so, yeah. Well, that maybe goes to another question then. Who is the audience for this? Like, what are you finding that the people who are, like, are they your age, or are you getting younger people into this stuff, or who's listening?
What are our metrics?
What's your demographic?
We haven't really studied that.
Like males 30 to 60.
Yeah.
70%. I should
probably.
Maybe.
I don't know what our demo is. Hopefully it's everybody.
Yeah.
But just from what you've seen at shows and stuff, like, do you have an idea of, like, who your fan is? Like,
I think it does probably tend to skew older.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll play a few more shows and get a few more people out and see how that goes.
Yeah. Get kind of the cool kid metrics.
Yeah, you need those. You need the cool kid metrics. So once this, now the tape's done, you got Albini. It's ready to go.
The next one's going to sound so much worse.
Is that that's not where I was going with that question, but I kind of like the answer. But no, like, how soon do you do the next one then? Because a lot of bands that I've talked to on here, they have something recorded. By the time it finally comes out, they're just so sick of it that they're already thinking ahead to the next thing, and this is just sort of formality to release it because they've moved beyond. Like, do you still feel that what's on the tape reflects your sound as of now, or are you already working on different stuff?
Well, I mean, we've already written more. We're constantly writing. I don't think we ever actually stopped writing.
Okay.
So I would be surprised if we didn't do something next year. I mean, it's relatively easy for us to do. So we'll probably do another tape next year.
I'd like to. Yeah, it seems to be that our arrangements are maybe becoming more complex and weirder. Which I think is good.
Yeah, you kind of want to capture that. I think it's like, I get really excited when bands do a lot of releases when they're really early because you can really chart that sort of evolution.
Yeah, for sure.
Like 1971 was a band that was
great band.
Just such an incredible band,
and they changed drastically over the
They really did, and it was so cool listening to every tape, and every tape sounds different, but each tape sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
So if we could sound like half as good as 1971 on every tape, that would be just awesome.
Cool. That's a cool reference because I feel like they didn't get a lot of maybe the respect that the popularity that they should have got, because the recordings they did great, and they're great live too. Like,
total sleeper.
Yeah, I think there's a few of those in the city like that where it's you just kind of you hear about them when it's too late or something, and then it's like, oh well, this is never gonna happen again, right? Yeah.
Sort of thing starts out small enough, but then it grows, and then sooner or later there's a sudden departure, a parting reminder, a glimpse of the truth. hard part is it only lasts so long. Somehow they can always tell. Sooner or later, there's a sudden departure, a parting reminder, a glimpse of the truth. Sooner or later, there's a sudden departure, a parting reminder, a glimpse of the truth. Is this the life? Is this the life you were born to live? Is this the life? Is this the life you were born to live? Is this the life?
Yeah. So the once it's out, the tape, I mean, obviously you want people to buy the shows. That's probably the main way they can get it. But are there other options for picking up the tape once it's available? Are you going to have it at stores or anything like that? Or is it sort of still in the air?
We're not that organized. We should probably, hey?
Do people buy music at stores still?
Yeah.
There's that record place in the whole park.
Yeah, there is,
here.
Sunrise.
I think a lot of bands place their stuff there.
They do. I've heard that they expect a lot of money out of the sale of the tapes, but they do.
Yeah.
I have bought stuff there before.
Well, that's cool. Maybe we'll talk.
And then I felt bad because I heard about their bands getting like a buck off this,
But it's kind of like half of it's just the appeal of having someone else selling your stuff.
Totally,
for you,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like that's kind of cool.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably look into it.
I'm assuming you're doing the digital stuff too, right?
Yeah,
Like
we're
that's-
doing the digital stuff.
Yeah.
There's a band camp. Like we'll put the tapes up for order on there. We'll probably charge more for shipping than for the tape.
Yeah, of
because
course, that's how it is.
works,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think November 30th it'll be released on all streaming platforms too.
Okay.
That'd be
If you wanna
good.
do that.
Yeah, we've got the single up on Spotify.
and
but-
all
Our
that,
single.
Yeah.
Everyone's laughing with the single. What's the just the fact that you have a
It's
single in
just
2018?
The idea of
yeah.
having a single on Spotify.
Yeah,
is
it's-
just
Well, just out of curiosity, like, how do the three of you consume music? Like, because I find that no matter who I'm interviewing, it's radically different. Like, you can have someone who just listens to tapes, or someone who's thrown out all their physical stuff and just listens to Spotify. Like, I've never used Spotify. I have no idea how it works, and I figure I just never will because I don't even want to get involved in it, right? But like, I know you mentioned you have a tape collection, but what about the rest of you? Like, are you all into physical stuff, or have you moved into the future?
For the most part, at home, more on stuff on
Yeah,
vinyl.
yeah.
We've got a pretty good setup in our house, so might as well. And then outside of the house, at work and stuff, usually Spotify.
Okay. So you could potentially listen to your own single on Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah, a mix for me too. If it's just
Yeah.
like background, I'll stream it. Like active listening, I'll listen to a lot of vinyl and
Yeah.
stuff that I can't find on streaming platforms.
Well, is there stuff you can't find now on streaming? I mean, again, I'm so out of the loop with that stuff, but
Yeah,
there is. Yeah,
Certain things,
some
yeah.
artists just never made their stuff.
sure, yeah.
available,
I guess especially smaller, local,
Yeah.
obscure.
Yeah.
You always experiment. You've probably never heard of it.
Well, that's what you should have been name dropping for influences. You probably never heard of it. Then all the cool kids would be into. Yeah. So once the album is released, the EP is released, what are your plans next? I mean, are you planning? Are you doing any touring or anything like that, or is that still sort of to be determined?
We're applying to a bunch of stuff. We've heard back about some stuff we can't get into.
Sure.
So we've got plans for next year for sure.
Okay.
And I don't know. I don't think any of us necessarily has the appetite or anything to spend a month in a van. But,
Yeah. Well, you do have this nice yellow car that.
We
yeah,
do.
Yeah.
This little mini Kia Rio.
Probably fit some drums in here. Right?
Yeah.
Little microphone.
We have.
Yeah.
You want a little cocktail kit? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would like to maybe play some other cities, but I don't think we'll do any like multi-month tours or anything.
Sure.
Yeah, we all have day jobs. And
Yeah.
Rob's got a baby.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Ruin everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got two of them. I know. Yeah. No, but it's funny because that is something that happens. I mean, like when I'm talking to maybe 19-year-olds on the show. It's very different, right? Because they're super ambitious. They're just like, I just graduated whatever high school. Like, I'll do whatever. I don't care. And then once you get into your 30s, it's like, well, I'd like to go on tour, but I have this babysitting jobs. Yeah, so it makes it harder, I guess. But
Yeah.
but
Maybe tours would be fun.
Yeah.
You go out to like Saskatoon or Regina even.
Yeah, I love Saskatoon.
Yeah.
Are there bands out in those areas that you think that you would like that you know of that would be a good fit?
Yeah, I mean there are a few bands from out there that I follow. I don't know that they would have any interest in playing with us, but you know, like we're huge Shooting Guns fans.
Those are amazing, yeah.
Yeah, one of my previous bands had a chance to open for them.
Oh, really?
It was incredible. They were so nice. Man Meat out of Saskatoon are just frigging incredible. Just the heaviest band ever. I love them. Who else? Chunder Buffet out of Saskatoon also, yeah. Yeah, they're really cool. So yeah.
Well, it seems like the Prairies has an appetite for noisy stuff anyway. Just whether it's metal or punk or noise or any of those experimental things. Like, for some reason, I don't know what the what the reason is, but it's
punishing
long winter.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
If you ever read like old like Prairie Lit from like the turn of the century sort of stuff, it's all the most hellishly depressing stuff you've ever read. So I think this is just the same thing, but
just a modernized
guitars.
version. Yeah. Depressing Prairie Lit with guitars. I like that. That's that's your new explanation of what your band is.
Yeah,
this is better than post punk, right?
Yeah.
So the actual release. What are the details of the when it's coming out and where people can see you?
Yeah, 4th on Friday, November 30th. We are opening. Hot Sewer, Hot Garbage, and Holy Void are playing. And that's going to be incredible. It's also going to be available on Bandcamp, softswitch.bandcamp.com, and yeah.
What's the significance of the name, out of curiosity? Softswitch.
We were really struggling to come up with something, and Softswitch is it's an electronics term. It's like a transistor switch rather than a mechanical switch. And I'm a nerd. I could do all of my own electronics. I do my pedals and stuff, and rebuilt my amp. I built Marisa's amp.
Cool.
So we were sort of trying to bounce around sort of, vaguely esoteric sounding terms, and that one sort of stuck better than some of the others. So.
Cool. Well, it's esoteric enough, I guess.
Yeah.
It works though. It definitely sounds like I find a lot of bands that are playing. I hate to use post-punk, but like one word names usually like a noun or something, right?
Yeah.
And
there are only so many of those.
Yeah. I guess you got a compound word, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. People should definitely check out the show. Where can they find your music online? I know you mentioned Spotify, Bandcamp. Are you social media? You want people to get in touch with you there? Or?
Yeah, we got a Facebook
and Instagram,
and we got an Instagram. Yeah, Susie's all about the Instagram. She's really good at that.
Okay.
We're really active on that, which is cool because I don't understand it at all. I use Instagram like someone's mom or aunt. I log in like once a month and I like all of everyone's photos and then I don't touch
disappear
it for
yeah.
So. I'm just on there for the cat pictures.
Oh yeah, that's what the internet is about. Really. I think it's cat pictures. Yeah. Okay, so Instagram is a good place to go to find out more, I guess, about shows coming up and things like that.
Yeah.
Working on our MySpace.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Somehow still exists MySpace. I don't know how that happened, but but anyway, yeah. Please check out the show. Check out the tape when it comes out. If you want to hear more episodes of this podcast, go to witchpolice.com. All 300 and whatever episodes are there for free download and streaming. And you can also tune in on Sundays at midnight on UMFM, and those are older episodes. So by the time this airs on there, it'll be maybe this summer or something. But at that point, the tape's already out. People can just go right out. Well, not right out at midnight, but they can go the next day and pick it up. So awesome. Yeah, thanks again for meeting me in this hot car parking lot.
Thanks for spending your lunch with us.
Yeah, thank you.